Hello, welcome to my channel. My name's Emerson Kvasnikov. I was born and raised in a small native village town, very small village, on the very tip of the Kenai Peninsula of maybe a population of 100 people at the time, maybe 100 to 200, mostly family. Uh, and this channel is basically about the story of who I was, who I am. Right now, I'm kind of in my little man cave. Here's where I've been living. And I usually have little squirrels and mice that come and visit me. They're my little friends. So, the story about me, who am I? I was told that when I was born, I had a large heart murmur. And the choices were either open heart surgery or they came out this new medication that I could try. And so my mom chose the new medication, but I had to have that medication every 12 hours. As I got a little older, I was told when I was 2.5 years old, I had shoved a 12-inch spike in my right ear, and now I can't hear out of my right ear. I grew up not being able to hear out of my right ear. I've been to the hospital many times for many surgeries trying to correct it. And at the time, the hospital, the ANMC hospital, they had a doc that was trying out new things on Native kids. And I got to be one of his lucky tests that never worked. We couldn't sue the doc because he had left state. And because of all those heart surgeries, I ended up having to not heart surgeries, I'm sorry. Because of all those ear surgeries, I ended up having to grow up very different. When I was little, because of my heart murmur, I wasn't allowed to be scared. And so that was always a challenge for my parents. And then because of my ear surgeries, I wasn't allowed to swim. There was a lot of things I was limited on what I can and can't do. I was like 12 years old when I finally got to learn how to swim. In the times prior, I remember at one point I had almost drowned swimming. And I could see one of the elders sitting on the beach watching me, which was like 10 feet away from me. And I was basically almost drowning. I was trying to jump, trying to get to shore, and finally when I was able to get to shore, I swallowed a bunch of salt water and everything. And the elder that was watching me thought that I was playing. He thought I was joking the whole time. That was a big scare for me. So when I was 12 years old, I finally got to swim. And it was when I got to swim, when I was finally able to get this ear wet, because I always had to have cotton, I always had some kind of stuff in my ear. I wasn't allowed to get wet. But when I was finally able to get wet, you couldn't keep me out of the water. As I grew up, I had my aunts. One of my aunts, she was only a year older than me. They would always bully me. At one point they grabbed my outdoor shoes and tossed them over the schoolyard into a fenced fuel station. So I had to crawl up and over the darn fence just to get my outdoor shoes so I could walk home. What else? remember when I was growing up, some of the elders would get mad at me because I couldn't hear out of my right ear. It pissed them off all the time. They would always call me Isluk, which means in our language, it just means deaf. And it would piss them off because I always had to have everybody repeat everything to me because I couldn't hear. So that was always a challenge. And then as I got older, when I was in junior high, I thought was the girlfriend of my dreams. It was the school principal's daughter. I fell in love, and I thought it was real love. I was finally happy. And well, that didn't last too long. I think right about when we were getting into, I met my dream girl when I was in junior high, and then it was right about, I think about 10th grade, they moved. They left the village because the principal wasn't there. He had a better opportunity to move, so I was excited. I was happy for once in my life, and then after she left, it seemed to have gotten worse. As I got into high school, I started drinking heavily. Anything to just kill the pain, I guess, and just try to find happiness. I thought alcohol was gonna get me happy. And so I was a heavy drinker. I partied a lot. And then I met my ex-wife, Adele. Everything seemed like I was on top of the world again. But that all took a turn. We had 4 kids together. I had 3 boys and 1 girl. The older boys was 20, 14, and then 16. And the young girl was 9, gonna be 10 soon. We lived a good life while we were in the village, for the most part. And then she just started getting like I couldn't make her happy no more. She didn't like the village life. She would get so mad about everything. I couldn't make her happy. I tried and tried and nothing was working. I poured everything into her. Before we got married, she would tell me if I didn't get like running water. Where we live, we're high up on a mountain, and the village, we were basically living in a dry house. There was no water. I packed water every day. After work, I would pack water to fill a trash can so we could use the bathroom, and at least use the bathroom in our house. And then finally I got water going, and I was finally able to get some running water, which was a really big change for me. That really helped. Seems like things were getting better. We bought all kinds of toys. I've always wanted a side-by-side, so I was able to get a side-by-side. I always wanted a four-wheeler. I got the four-wheeler. I always wanted a skiff, a boat with a new motor, and I got that. And that didn't last too much longer. We started just fighting. Everything just kind of flopped. My work was, I was always having to work. I was always having to travel. I traveled so much. I was always away from the kids. I basically missed out on the kids' growing up. I didn't get a lot of time to spend with them, and so after that, things got worse. She just no longer could be happy. I couldn't. There's nothing I could do to make her happy. I gave it all, and then we started fighting more and fighting more. And at one point, it got so bad that we had fought so bad, and it was during lunchtime, I remember. But I remember going down to the end of the airport, and I kept thinking, if I could only find a piece of rope, I just wanted to end it all. Yeah, I didn't want to live no more. But we got through it. I survived. I went back to work. And we've somehow overcame that fight. When Layla was born, when my youngest daughter was born, we bought property in Anchor Point, and we were planning to move and build. So we kept telling each other that once, because we were on Medicaid waiting for Layla over here on the Homer side, which is a town away from our village. We wanted a place to stay. We couldn't find a place to stay. We had a hard time trying to find a place to stay. With the 3 boys, my wife was pregnant. I ended up having to bring my kids back to the village, the 3 boys, and we had a few cousins stay with them and watch them for the 3 days while we were back over in Homer waiting for our daughter to be born. So we had bought property just because of that. We decided to move in 2024. I remember it was June 2024. I have pictures of we moved over and we just lived in a motorhome. From that motorhome, every day, every chance I can, I went and tried to work on the house. I was building our house, and we were living in a motorhome. That motorhome was so cold during the winter. When winter came in, I remember you could hear breath, and the kids we would have to wake them up to take them to school. But I remember them crying because it was so cold. They didn't want to get out of the blankets that they were in. It was a cold spell we went through. We didn't have power. We were living off of a generator, and so we were trying to conserve fuel just to keep the generator running. And I had a solar system, but it wasn't the batteries I had just weren't big enough to run anything. I was just starting to learn solar, so it wasn't like the greatest solar system at all. It worked for very little. I mean, the kids would be able to watch a TV for maybe a couple hours and then it would die on them. And so we relied heavily on that generator. As I was building the house, I got a job at a clinic, a local clinic here in Homer. I worked, and it was starting to make things a little bit better. Made it. We were able to get power installed, and we got our power installed into the house. But of course, we bought all the power lines and everything, and everything on that house I pretty much did. We didn't have the funds to rent a backhoe or something to help dig for the power line, because every cent was going into the house. Every penny was being used for either insulation or vapor barrier or power lines, electric boxes, lights, everything. So everything had to have been done by me. I had to learn how to install my own power. This is the second house that I built. In the village I built a house as well. But on this side I've never really installed my own power line, and so every day I had to bury this power line which ran across our driveway, and it was a 300-foot run to the main power line. And so that power line had to have been buried at least 4 feet deep. So every day I had to go out and use a pick and try to dig my way from the house 300 feet away to the main power source. That was a little intense. I ended up hooking up the whole line myself. I hooked up the power to the main power line, and then I hooked up all my electrical boxes, my everything inside the house. I ran the big heavy duty wiring and everything in there. But it was stressful not knowing, because everything I learned was off of YouTube. And so I'm a YouTuber and I love watching YouTube. I love learning how to make resourceful heat, everything, power. And so that was a big challenge for me. So I got the power going, and then heat. I was familiar with like diesel heaters, monitors, stove monitors. I used to have one in the village that every time it would crap out, I knew exactly what was needed and what it took to fix it. So every day it seemed like I was begging this darn heater to work. We bought a heater from some guy for $100, and he didn't say anything much about it, and so we were kind of desperate at the time, and so I hooked it up and I got it working, and seemed like I was always begging it to work. I've had to learn so many ins and outs of it, and so I had to figure out how to run my own fuel tank into the house, and then to get this heater going, because I did not want to go back to being cold like we did when we were in that motorhome. Those were some cold days that I would not want to relive again. So that all worked for a while, and we were still off and on. We would still have our bickers every now and then. And then things turned again. I just couldn't make my ex-wife happy. I tried so hard. And we fought again. And again, I got to that point again. It's like, why? What's the purpose of living? Why? What do I do now? So I remember that morning very clearly. I sat outside and it was snowing outside. And I remember thinking, asking God, please put tenderness in her heart. Please tender her heart. Because I just couldn't do it no more. I was getting burnt. I couldn't make her happy. I tried everything. And ever since then, my life has changed. Everything changed. This is where I'm currently at. And so things will get better. I know they'll get better. I have a bunch of tarot family that keep my hopes up. They always encourage me, and they always let me know what's going on. I don't know if I could have done it without them. It's been a lonely road for me. I don't know if I have any friends. The only friends I have right now are anybody who's watching this online, maybe. But I'm gonna stop this. This will be part 1 for this segment. Of course, I'll inform more to come. That'll be part 2 after. Thank you for watching my channel, and thank you for listening to my story. And remember, there's always hope. My spirits, my ancestors, and God are always with me. And my next one, I'll explain more about them, how they've helped and how they've entered me, where I could feel and stuff. Alright? More to come. God bless. Have a good day, everyone.